A New Hope, Nier Chapter 159 Fan Fiction by Azazyel. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel for listening and patreon.com/Azazyel to read all of his stories. The world of Elden Ring was fucking stressful to say the damned least. In barely more than 24 hours I had gone from having a only partly physically enhanced body to a far more enhanced body with 2 great runes stuffed within my body. To say nothing of dealing with some of the most powerful demigods I knew of. Bringing them back from insanity, and of course, I had pushed myself greatly in the battle against Radahn with my rapid portal creation to avoid the apocalyptic meteor storm he summoned. I doubt Caelid is going to have as much of a rot problem after all those molten meteors rammed into it. I thought as I laid down in a fuck-off huge bed of the spare bedroom I had claimed for myself. Even now I could feel the great runes within myself acting as the framework to support my enhanced body, as the runes I had invested in it were also strengthening my body. But while I was a bit worried about how the great runes were the ones enhancing my physical body so much, well, if I died and I lost my great runes, then the loss of their enhancements was the last thing I needed to worry about, honestly. Either way, with A2 and Melina having gone to their own space to relax after the day, with A2 mostly wanting to just give me a bit of personal space as she was actually a sweetheart, I finally had some alone time basically. And with my wonderful hard-earned alone time, I did what all men dream of doing once they get away from their responsibilities. I was just in a doze, staring up at the ceiling, utterly content with the sounds of the cold winds entering the room from the window I opened. I wasn't quite asleep yet, but my mind was all but shut down, with no particularly great thoughts rising up. I was at peace lying on my back with nothing to disturb me. But as I just laid there like a dead fish, my eyes looked down as I felt a flare of mana, and my lips twitched as from the foot of my bed was a tall woman. A tall woman with long black hair that trailed down her back and glittering blue eyes that looked into mine. "You have upheld your word in bringing me to Runni," proving she was alive and relatively well. "Then you even went out of my way to challenge the strongest of the demigods in my son Radahn, cleared his mind of insanity, and brought him back to me." Renala's speech took place as Renala carefully took off the long half-moon headpiece she wore, allowing her long midnight black hair to fall down her back. Then she came over and crawled onto the large bed that I realized actually was more than big enough for her tall form. She carefully sat on my waist with her leaning down, her voluptuous large breasts hidden under her voluminous robes were pushing against my chest as she leaned down, so our faces were but inches away. With our faces so close to one another and our eyes so close we could see the slightest of micro-expressions in one another's eyes, and with us so close, Renala asked frankly with her voice a slow whisper. "Jake Barris. People don't do so much for others unless they want something of equal value in return. I am the Carrion Queen, and I know of the politics of give and take, to say nothing of our age difference." My face twitched at the reminder that she was literally 1,000+ years old probably, but I had some experience with well-aged women in Salem. Even if she needed to be mentally shattered via magical dicking and knocked up to quit being a genocidal maniac who wanted to destroy the world after her beloved children died before. And knowing that and how women of their maturity less wanted to be wined and dined as they had tired of the chase, I lifted a hand from under the covers and I placed it across her face as I smiled and said, "If I killed your Ratty for his great rune and the lesser runes, and you thought I could have healed him, would you have forgiven me in your mind?" Her form stilled hearing my words, and I trailed my hand from her cheek down her neck slowly as I continued speaking softly. "Renala, I want you obviously to become my lover, to teach my people magic, to help me grow in personal power. I want so much of you, so do not worry about some invisible debt hanging over us." Her eyes grew lidded as her legs tightened around my own, and for a moment she looked at me with a deep hunger that made me almost feel like a cornered animal with how she was like a meter taller than myself. But I just smiled confidently as she cupped my jawline as her deep ancient mind rolled over my previous words. I could tell she was fine with the last few bits, in helping my organization and even making myself more powerful. But she was a woman who loved beyond deeply, and with Radahn up and leaving her to rejoin Marika, she had been burned to say the least. But in her eyes, I was a young adventurous man who saw what he wanted and took what he wanted, not hesitating by what-ifs or other hang-ups. And that willingness to open my heart to her had broken through her mentally shattered state previously. So with all that in mind, Renala dipped down low and kissed me upon my lips, low and slow, gently, with her other hand cupping the other side of my face as she fully laid against me while I moved my hands downwards to her divine hips that had managed to birth Radahn. I didn't press her, and for good reason, as after I squeezed her hips she shuddered and she slowly broke the kiss with her lidded eyes staring into mine as she spoke softly. "Thou will go no further until you do one thing. Make an honest woman out of me at the Church of Vows."